Hey everybody, I am just going to show you a really quick tutorial on how I made some large lava bases. So to start with, I've got a base. Now, to be fair, this is a custom base that I made myself on my 3D printer. But you need a base, and I'm going to use some cork. And to start with, I'm going to cut the cork out in roughly the size of the base. I'm actually going to, because I have a recess here, I'm going to cut this a little small, and that's going to be fine, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm just going to mark this off. And take my X-Acto knife, and I guess I just keep using this as a guide. I didn't need to mark it. And now I've got a piece of cork that almost fits inside my base. It's a little off, but that's okay. So now I just want to figure out like where I want my lava to flow. And I think what I want to do is have it kind of come up from the bottom and split here into two different sort of flows. So to do that, I'm just going to break it. And breaking it will give you a kind of a natural look right from the beginning. You don't really have to do anything special because you already have this nice ragged edge. But again, it still doesn't really fit, and I would like to roughen up this edge as well, the outer edge. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to scrape. You know what, I think I'm going to scrape from the bottom. And what that's going to do is that's going to, for me, it's going to help it fit down there better. But I also want to get the upper edge a little bit too, because I really want to get rid of that sharp edge that it has. So I'm just going to scrape it with the edge of the X-Acto all along that outside, and that's okay. We call those happy accidents. Alright, that's a mess. Normally I would do this over my trash can. Okay, that's there. That fits pretty well. Nope, let's not lose this piece. And we do the same thing on this side. And this one I am going to do over the trash can. So I'll be back momentarily. Okay, so now that I have that roughed up on the edge, it all mostly fits, but I want to turn this into essentially a channel for the lava. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to widen this out. So I'm essentially just going to do what I just did, but I'm going to do the inside portions, and I want it to be, I want to do a lot more than I did on the outside. The outside was really just to get rid of that sharp edge, and the inside I actually want to really work it so that I get, I don't know, maybe anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch, so like 1/4 on either side, so that I can have the channel that I want the lava to flow through. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be back. Alright, so there's our channel. And I think we're ready to glue it down. So I'm just going to take some super glue, run it around the outside, a little bit in the middle, And that's good. Same thing on the other side. Then a little bit down here. Oh, I think I did that a little bit off, but that's fine. That'll work right there. I might have put this in upside down. But this isn't rocket science. Well, that corner's a little open. I'm going to throw in a little bit of my extra bits into there just to add some texture into that corner. Ooh, and there's a little bit in this corner too. Alright, and we'll let that set. So you can finish the surface of this however you want. I mean, even the bare cork looks really good as is once painted. But the way I like to use it, or like to finish it, is this is Vallejo. It's one of their pumice fillers, sort of texture pastes. It's very fine, and I'm almost out of it. But I'll just sort of surface it with this just a little bit. It fills in some of the crevices, but if you don't do all of it, it means you're going to get some kind of cracking and some smooth, but you're also going to get the texture from the pumice. So it's a nice, interesting mix. And of course, you can also lay it down a little thick and create more height so that you don't have, you know, the single flat surface that looks like asphalt. Which, by the way, great way of making asphalt. So I'm just going to spend a little time working on that to a place where I like it and let it dry, and then it'll be ready for primer. Okay, now that this is all dry and ready to go, I'm going to give it a little gray dry brush to kind of give it that ashy look. And I think I'm going to go with Watercolors Warm Gray 4. But you could use whatever gray you like. And maybe I should have picked a color I had more of. No, I got it. That's good. I got a big brush. This is a Privateer Press large dry brush, which I use for lots of different things, including cleaning my airbrush. I want to make sure I hit the edges, and then get a reasonable dry brush over the rest of the area. On something like this, I do kind of like to use a circular motion to keep the straight brush strokes off of it. But if I will, you know, if I really want to make sure I'm hitting something, sometimes you gotta just brush. Dry brushing is something I don't do very often. For those of you who've been watching my videos for a long time, you know that terrain is one of the things where I will use it. Alright, next step requires the airbrush, at least for me. Not necessarily for you. You can do this without an airbrush, but I have the tool. I know how to use it. I'm going to use it. I'll be right back. Okay, so for this step, I'm going to be using, this is Watercolors Red 5, which is a incredibly dark red. And I am going to be spraying it into the channel and up the sides. Really, I don't care if it gets in here. I really want it to get it on the sides of the groundwork there. And this is sort of my heat glow. Now, another way to approach this would have been to do all this painting ahead of time before the pieces got glued down. That's one way to go. Not the way I just chose to do it. Alright, we'll let that dry. Okay, this next step was entirely unnecessary on the initial base that I did, but I'm kind of hoping for a better outcome this time, so I'm going to do it again, hoping that I'm going to get what I want out of it. So I'm just going to be brushing in. This is Watercolors One Coat Yellow, and I'm going to brush it in to the bottom here. And the point of this is to provide a nice base for our subsequent colors, to be able to brighten them up and perhaps even show through and provide some depth to those subsequent colors. And you can see I'm not being as careful as I might want to be, but I can touch that up in a little bit. And you don't have to be real precious with this. It doesn't have to be super smooth. It's going to get covered up with other colors. You know, just try not to get it all over the place, because you know you will need to go back and clean it up before you move on to the next step. Or in this case, I'm going to have to go back and clean it up before I get to the next step. Especially all of that crap that I just did. But that's fine. I mean, part of being professional is knowing how to hide your mistakes. Alright, so that's done. I'm going to go ahead and, you know, clean up this garbage off camera, and then we'll come back for the next step. Okay, so this step I gotta go kind of fast. I'm utilizing some 5-minute epoxy putty and a little bit of Watercolors orange fluorescent paint, and I'm gonna make some lava, make some glowy lava. Now the thing is that this epoxy is a little old, and it seemed like when I used it last, it kind of wanted to kick pretty quick. So I think I'm going to go a little light on the hardener. And I think I used a little bit too much of the orange, which is why the yellow didn't make any difference on my first try. So I'm going to try 2 drops into that and see how it goes. It's like I want it to have some opacity, but I don't want it to be, I don't want it to just look like thick glossy paint. I would like to be able to see through it a bit. And I think, and it's hard to tell because of the way this resin is, the epoxy resin, in this state is not transparent, but you can tell that there's the color is not very intense in that cup, which is why I added some more. Alright, that's all right. Even if it turns out like my last one, which I haven't shown you yet, but I did do another one before I started this one because I kind of wanted to have some idea of what the result was going to be, because this is something of an experiment. Alright, that's not looking too bad. I think that's about right. And it does look better than the last one, although I gotta say it's probably still going to be too opaque for the yellow to make any difference. Alright. Set that aside somewhere where it's not going to get into things. And now I got to work with it fast, because again, 5-minute epoxy, and it's old. And I need to fill this channel. Maybe I'll see if I can do it this way. Alright, stop. Got a little bit over the side. I don't really want to get it on the upper edges, but I don't know that there's much way to avoid it at this point. Especially right here. I think I made this a little bit too narrow a gap. I guess I'll just have to try to brush it down in. The thing is, while it's liquid, it'll find the bottom on its own. But once it starts to kick, that's it. You're done. You know, it just becomes rubbery. And it's not going to flow anymore. I think we just, well, we're not there yet. It's still flowing. A little anyway. It hasn't gotten stringy. Oh, it's just about there. Okay, let's get that off up there. Yeah, it's starting to get stringy. Okay. Alright, we're done with that step. Now again, this is a 5-minute epoxy, so we're going to let it sit for its 5 minutes. Well, really, it's going to be more like 20. 5 minutes. I'm not really sure where they get that number from, because it always takes more than that to really harden up. I'm trying to give that, I'm spreading out the bit that was at the top, giving it some texture, so that if I go back there and clean up the paint, I don't have a big smooth spot. Is there any, can I get any more in there? Alright, that's good. Alright, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so we're going to let this kick off and solidify, and I'll be back with the next step. But yeah, it looks like that yellow. Didn't matter. Again. Okay, see you in a bit. Alright, for the next step I'm using epoxy again, but this time I'm using the Super Glaze stuff. This is meant for like coating tabletops and thing. It works just like the 5-minute epoxy. The difference is that this stuff works over 24 hours. So that's why I didn't use it on the first part. There are different grades of epoxy. Like there's a 5-minute, a 10-minute, a 20-minute. A 20-minute would be perfectly fine for this part, but I don't have that. I have this. And so what I've done is I mixed up a batch with a little bit of Warcolors Red 3, and I've left it pretty transparent, and I'm just going to put it on top of this orange. Now the nice thing actually about this being a really slow burn epoxy is that it's really going to find its level over top of this orange, which is going to give the orange a lot of sort of different textures or shades, really, in terms of its color. So you're going to have some orange that's really bright and some that's more red, because this is all going to level out in a way that the orange couldn't, because it kicked off so quickly. You also want to make sure you don't do too much of this, because it's going to find its level over time. You might set this out on your table and find that it's spilled off one edge because maybe you had it, you know, at an angle or something on the tabletop. So just be aware that as thick as it might seem, it is still a liquid, and it's going to flow over time to find its level. And if it can find a way out, it's going to do that. You know, there's another reason you want to have sort of a long working time here, and that's going to be the next step, which I'm not going to even pause for once I get this in here. But I got to get it in there. Alright, I'm just trying to make sure it's like touching all the edges from either side. Okay, that looks pretty good. Oh, I don't have any in there. Okay, so the final step is kind of like the just a little final touch that I really like, and I'm going back to my red 5 for this. And using the clean part of the toothpick, I'm just going to put some of that on the toothpick, and then I'm going to drop it in here and just spread it a bit. And I don't know if you've ever seen flowing magma, but I think I assume what I'm seeing when I see it is sort of cooler bits of rock that are kind of floating on the surface, but it's still almost semi-liquid. And that is what I'm doing here, is making that. And so it's just paint on the toothpick. I just dab it right into there, and then you can spread it around if you want, make weird shapes. And you can kind of go as much or as little of that as you want. I've seen all kinds of different ways that stuff kind of looks. I think, but like anything, you don't want it to be too regular. Now, I don't know. I won't even say that, because certainly pictures that I've seen of this stuff can make it look fairly regular. But I think it looks good. It looks pretty good right there. Now, unfortunately, this now, because of what I used right here, oh, you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more of the resin in this little spot right here. But because this is a long-running resin, I'm going to have to wait 24 hours before I can finish this video and show you how it looks. But that's what I'm going to do. So through the magic of video, and there they are. So that's both of them actually. You know, as you can see, I have shown you that initial trial run that I did. And I'm pretty happy. I gotta say the only thing that is maybe perhaps a little odd here, and I'm okay with it, but you know, maybe something you may not like. They're glossy. They're really glossy. Lava probably shouldn't be glossy. It's not liquid in that way. It's not a shiny. It's not a shiny liquid. I could perhaps give it a matte coat, but I think that's going to dull the color, and I don't want to do that. So, that's going to be what gets mounted on there, and I think it's going to look just fine. But that's going to do it for now. That's the entirety of this experiment, if you will. And let me know how you like it. Let me know if you've tried it. Let me know if you've improved on it. I'd love to know if there's something you did on yours that you found that actually is better than this. I'd like to learn from you, just like you learned from me. And that's going to do it for now, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.